Hello everyone, and once again, welcome to my podcast. Now, in the last 15 years, there's been an explosion of media. Unfortunately, not everybody is being well served by it, and my guest is one of those people. There are some international reports that in Zambia, we have about 200,000 deaf people. Now, this is not an issue that we normally get to hear about in the media. And so on my podcast today, we decided to invite a lady who is deaf so that she can share with us her everyday story and how she has managed to cope with this situation. Please allow me to welcome Rachel Chomba. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad that you accepted to come and share with us your life story on this podcast. Let me just start by asking you, when were you born? Where were you born?
Okay, I was born in Kasama, Northern Province, and I'm the last born from a family of 12.
12.
Yes, we're a very big family.
How many girls? How many boys?
From there, I need to count them. I can't remember how many were. Okay, I've lost some of my siblings, and I were about 9. I've got 4 brothers and 4 sisters. Yeah. So, growing up, I was born hearing, and then I lost my hearing when I was 14 years old due to quinine infusion.
Let's just go back a little bit. How old are you now?
Yeah, now I'm 35.
You're 35 years old
Yes,
now.
I'm 35 years old now.
Okay. And when you were born until 14 years old, you could actually hear. You had your
Yes, I was
hearing.
able to hear up until I was 14.
And then what happened when you were 14 years old?
I had meningitis.
Meningitis?
Yes,
You were,
I was
you were
sick
living
for
in
a while.
Kasama?
Yes, yes. I had meningitis and I was unconscious for about a week. So while I was unconscious, I was given quinine to treat the malaria that I had because it was really severe. And thereof, I was sick for about 6 months or so. Yeah. But I never regained my hearing after that.
Before 14 years old, had you had malaria before?
Yes, yes.
And you
Before.
had taken quinine before?
No. I hadn't been administered with quinine then. I think we had chloroquine back then. That was a commonly used medication then. But at this particular time, I think the malaria was really serious and the doctors administered quinine because they thought that it would be helpful.
Now, after being sick and unconscious for 1 week, did you lose your hearing immediately after that 1 week or in the 6 months that you were ill?
I lost it completely when I became conscious.
Immediately? Immediately?
When I became conscious, I was deaf. So it was all new to me. When I came to, I was surprised I couldn't hear, but I was told that it's just a medicine effect and it would wear off with time.
And then it
But
never did?
no, there was no changes. For some time, we did some different tests, visited different doctors, and we tried to use hearing aids. But it seemed like my sensory nerves had been damaged because of the effects of the quinine.
And so they established that you are allergic to quinine? Does this happen to other people, or it was just a very rare occurrence with you? What did the doctors say?
I have heard a lot of stories about quinine having an effect on hearing for many deaf children here in Zambia. And it's not just in Zambia, this happens in Africa a lot. Quinine being administered causes deafness. And it has been slightly been talked against over the years. I think Zambia has reduced the use of quinine over the years from that time.
Okay. Now, you wake up, you can't hear. How did you feel?
It was depressing. Yeah. It was an emotional experience for me. Firstly, I was weak. I couldn't get anything from the environment. I couldn't communicate with my family. Like, they would be sitting around me. I couldn't hear anything. Completely nothing. Yeah. And I think I went through all phases of depression before I could be able to accept it.
Now, what did the doctors say they could do for you at that point? Before you left the hospital, what did the doctors say they could do for you?
We don't have any kind of specialty in Zambia, especially for such kind of problem. So I did try to visit some doctors here in Lusaka. I would travel to Lusaka with my family, seeing some ENT specialists. Trying to get intervention. I would get some medicine. I don't know what it's called then, but I would directly be injected on the nerves in the ear. And yes, to try to help for me to regain the hearing, but those injections never helped.
Is Rachel's life over after losing her hearing and undergoing treatment with no positive results? Find out more after the break.
In the meantime, who was paying for this treatment? Was it the family? Was it the government? Who was paying for the treatment?
Oh, my family? My parents paid for the treatments. So eventually we met one doctor.
Your parents work in Kasama or they're in business?
Oh, my family ran a business in Kasama. The business people, they were running a family business. We had different trading. Yeah, that's what was helping us.
Now, Rachel, you're 14. Your world goes totally silent. And you have to get back to school. How did that happen? You get to school and you can't hear anything. Did you go to school immediately?
When I recovered and I had to go back to school, the first week was a major challenge. Like the whole school experience was different. I was in the mainstream school and everyone is speaking.
Well, what grade were you in at this point?
I was in grade 10.
Grade 10?
Yeah, it was just my beginning of my grade 10 experience. So I'd gotten sick in my first term. After the holidays, I had to go back to school, and let me say our academic year starts in January. We closed in April, and I got sick in May. So I missed the whole term. And I went back to school in October that year. I should remember it was 2001. Yeah. So I went back to school in October that year, and I had to interact with my peers, interacting with the teachers. Everything was different.
So how was it working? Here you were not born deaf. You become deaf at 14, and then you go to school. So how did that work the first day? How did the teachers have to write notes for you? How did it work? Because you hadn't learned how to read then.
So the first week, I had to learn to copy notes from my friends. But the experience was different. I was depressed. So after the first week, I went back home and told my father, I'm not going back to school, I'm done. If they don't hire a teacher to come and teach me from home, I was not going to go back to school. So I stayed home for about a week. And then the school management called my parents. And they said they would help me, encourage me to get back to school. So after that meeting, my father was like, he just stood his ground. Tomorrow you are going to school, whether you like it or not. And then thereafter, I would be copying notes from my friends, which I would read later, because most of schools, they are dictating their notes to the learners to write them down. So I'd be copying from my friends. Then I would read when I was home. And that was what characterized my education from then on.
But for a subject like maths, the teacher has to explain the problem on the board, explain the equations, especially in grade 10 to grade 12. I know that. How did you manage? You cannot copy those notes without explanations.
I've had to conform to learning how to read and understand things on my own. That has been the only way to get around it, because I did not have no sign language. I wasn't around a school which was a special school. And I did not have any other deaf people around me. I was the only deaf person around the school. So I needed to learn.
By yourself.
Needed to coach myself, know how to learn and try to understand what the content of the lessons. It was very difficult.
Did you sit for the grade 12 exam?
Yes, I did. I started from a grade 12 and I must say I passed with flying colors.
Wow.
Regardless of the challenge, it was, I mean, let me just say, God was there with me. He's always been there. He always carried me through. Where you have a will, there's a way.
So in Kasama at this point, there was no school specializing in deaf children. At what point did you begin to learn how to lip read and the sign language? How did that happen for you?
Lip reading came as a survival skill. Something that I learned so that I could communicate with my family. Yes, by myself, so that I could communicate with family, I could communicate with my friends. So I started to learn how people articulate words. I started to learn how different people pronounce things so that I could be able to communicate. But Kasama had one special school then, though the quality of the education was different to what I was receiving. I was at a private school then, so moving from a private school to a government school was something that my parents could not conform to. So we tried to make the best of what I could do and work with that. But we had Chile school in Kasama.
And that helped. That's where you learned sign language?
No. I learned sign language when I got deployed in the teaching service.
So
after university.
School, after university?
Yes.
And from 14 until after university, it was just survival skills, instinct,
I was dependent on lip reading. So I started to learn sign language when I was 26.
Let me just get back you back a little bit. 14, you become deaf. How did this impact your parents? I mean, you were going through the experience firsthand, but how did this impact your parents, your mother, especially?
I have had very supportive parents, I should say, from my dad, my mom, my family. From the time I lost my hearing, being the baby of the family too contributed because everyone was there to care for me. But there's one thing that my mother always said. Losing my hearing did not change me in any way. My mother always reminded me, just because you can't hear something does not mean you've lost your intelligence, you are not smart anymore. You can read, you know how to read, you know how to speak. That will take you places. So you need to put in the effort. You need to always stay resilient. And my mother kept on pushing me. She never accepted grades below 60. When I go back home, if I had a test at school and I scored under 60, I was going to hide it. Because my mother would always be upset with me. That, why are you scoring these grades now? I used to be an A+ student and then going down to B, but that was because of the changes I was experiencing in class. So now I had to make in the effort because every time I would go back home with lower grades, my mom would be upset. So I worked harder for my parents. I worked hard so that I could make them proud regardless of the hearing loss.
Yeah. Let me just emphasize to you that Rachel here was actually born with hearing and only lost her hearing at 14 years old. And as we record this podcast, we actually have somebody, an interpreter in sign language, because even though she can lip read, she sometimes is not able to follow everything. So for that purpose, we have a sign language interpreter with us. Now, you've lost your hearing, you're depressed, and sometimes we've heard in recent times a lot of people talking about mental health. Did you have any dark thoughts? How far did you go? Did you feel always confident, or did you feel like, you know what, it's not worth living if the world is all silent around me?
Yeah, the issue of mental health is one thing that's affecting a lot of people, and especially persons with disabilities, because not just me who's deaf, because people are like struggling silently. I'm coming from a world where I could hear before. I was able to sing, I was able to dance, listen to music, and then I'm getting into this silent world. I'm there alone. When I close my eyes, I'm not conscious of the environment around me. So it becomes very depressing, very agonizing. You start to think about, there's some certain times I thought about killing myself, taking my own life. It's like, what's the point of living?
You wanted to commit suicide.
Yeah. So what's the point of living if I can't enjoy things that I used to enjoy before? And everyone else feels sorry for you.
What sound did you miss the most? Music? Your mother's voice? What have you missed the most?
Everything.
Everything, right?
Everything. Everything. Even people scolding at me, even people shouting me, anything, any sound that's available, anything. Every bit of sound, I will miss that. But over the years, I've accepted it. And but I would encourage, if there are people out there who are going through this, because hearing loss can happen at any time. It doesn't mean when you are born hearing, you can't lose your hearing even much later in your life. It's not just a hearing loss. Maybe you can have an injury that can make you lose your limb. Those things are experiences that you will need to be counseled for. And I would encourage anyone who would be going through that to talk to someone, because many a times we are alone in these things. People think you are okay. People expect you to be okay, but there is a lot of inside emotions going on that are unsettling, that are making you think about causing harm to yourself. And
what was the fear for you? I mean, for example, I can imagine that if you live alone, you can't even hear when there are thieves trying to get it into your house. What has been the fear for you?
For now, I can say that my other senses have become very sharpened after the hearing loss. So fear of being alone is gone. I'm able to manage on my own. Like, if I don't fear being attacked, like someone is going to attack me in the night, or someone's going to, because when I am asleep, I am conscious of my surroundings. I'll be able to like feel there's something wrong.
And take extra care on the road, because you can't hear the cars if you have to cross the road, and so on, right?
The vision. You have to be careful. You see your surrounding. Most of the time, a deaf person is able to focus on a number of things at the same time, because their eyes are their ears at the same time. So I'm looking at you. I can look about three different people at the same time. I register the movements around me, even if I'll be focusing on one person. So our vision, our eyes, those work as our ears as well.
How was university? How was the experience for you? And which university did you go to?
I was at the University of Zambia. And because I had already had that classroom experience of having to copy notes from friends, this was the same way when I got to university. I met some friends in class who I would share notes with. Some lecturers were kind enough to give me modules after the lectures. Not all of them, they can't manage that. But some of them were kind enough to give notes after lectures, which I would read later on. And experiences. Universities in Zambia don't have any sign language interpretation. Even if I could not benefit from that then, now it would be best to have sign language interpreters in universities to help deaf learners to be able to be there.
And what did you read at university?
At university, I studied special education.
Special education.
Yes,
And so what do you do now?
I am a special education teacher, a human rights advocate, and I'm also part-time lecturer at University of Zambia. And all has come as a result of special education, even though that was not what I ambitioned to be.
Well, what did you want to
be? Growing up, I always wanted to be a doctor, a medical doctor, a surgeon to be precise. And then when I lost my hearing, that dream was lost, because I keep on saying, no, doctors, you can't have a deaf doctor. We can't have someone working in the hospitals who is deaf. So I tried to change that to be a pharmacist at least. And then when I applied at the University of Zambia, they were like, no, even pharmacy wouldn't work. She's deaf. She might prescribe the wrong medication to someone. So I was forced to do special education. But
do you think that is fair, that a person who is deaf cannot be a doctor?
No, it's not fair to decide what someone can or cannot do.
And are there no deaf doctors anywhere in the world? Have you heard of any?
Yes, we have heard some deaf graduates, but they're few because of these disability stereotypes. People will think, no, this person is deaf, they can't do that. But allow the person to experience themselves and say, I can't. You give someone an opportunity to be self-determining. Okay. I will decide what I can do. I will decide what I can't do. It's not up to you to tell me that I can't do this.
Rachel's dream of becoming a medical doctor is shattered after being turned away by the University of Zambia. After the break, she tells us more about how much stigma she experiences.
So Rachel, yourself, how much stigma did you suffer?
That's more of on a daily basis. There are people who do not understand deafness. Many people have misconception about deafness because they feel with this and it goes deaf and dumb. Now, people take that literal. Like they think a deaf person doesn't know anything. A deaf person can't lead. A deaf person is ignorant. But it's especially the time when you want to meet people, like these significant people. The first thing when they hear that the person who is meeting you is deaf, they already have that perspective of a deaf person. Oh, this person is low achiever. But those kind of thoughts about deafness that people have, those kind of perceptions that they have, become highly discriminatory to me. Not just personally to me, but also to the deaf community.
Yes, and
because they already have those perceptions before they even meet you, before they even see what you can put on the table. They already know, deaf people, they're low achievers. Leave it like that.
And I know that children can be quite cruel. While you were still at secondary school, were some even afraid of you, like you've got some disease or something?
Not really, but I can share one experience that I experienced at Soweto Market. It was mushroom season. I can't remember the year exactly, but it was mushroom season. And I was with my friend. So we were trying to buy something. I can speak. So she's deaf, she can speak.
Okay.
Yes. So we were asking how much something costs, how much a band of mushroom costs. So we were picking it out. And immediately I started signing. The lady there started showing some sort of way. No, just guess. Just pushing those mushrooms away. So we were both like shocked. Why would someone behave like that? So people believe that, there are some people out there who still believe that having a disability or having deafness is contagious or it will bring bad luck to them. After she saw us signing, she was hostile. So that behavior is even common with others. In the past, after having that experience, I used to be embarrassed to sign in public. Because I would feel like if a person sees me signing, they'll start being scared of me. So most of the times I will be speaking. It is not until that I learned the culture, I learned more sign language, I became more proud to use my language. I became more proud to be able to sign. Yes, my signing ability is still progressing because I learned sign language as an adult. But I am very proud to use my hands where I need to because that is my language. I can use both sign language. I can speak, I can sign at the same time. And that's, to me, is something very powerful.
Let me ask you this, because I'm quite intrigued. You have such a vocabulary, your grammar, even your pronunciation. Now, you went deaf at 14. How have you been able to capture the language, the vocal language, so that you can actually pronounce these words and learn new words. How did that happen?
That's a question a lot of people ask me. And okay, firstly, I grew up, I love to read. So my vocabulary and knowing how to use my English or learning a different language has been very easy because I love to read. Now, with the pronunciations, some words, yes, they're difficult, but I always rush back to my family. Like I said, my family has been very supportive with me. So I would write the word down and ask my sister, how do you pronounce this? Or ask my brother, and they would break it down for me. Like they would write the word as it is said, so that I'll be able to voice it, yes. So they'll be writing it down as this is said, and from their own. And if this happens even now, there are certain times I'm away from home. I'll call my sister and ask her, I'll video call her, and ask her how to say this word. So she'll be voicing it, she'll be mouthing it, and I'll be seeing how she's moving her lips. When she can't help me, I'll Google. Google has different pronunciations there, and I am able to learn how to pronounce different words that way.
Wow, that's really, really excellent.
With Rachel sometimes struggling to communicate and pronounce certain words, she tells us more about how she in fact has no problem communicating with her children after the break.
How old are your children?
My firstborn is 8 years old and my second is 6.
It's 6. And what do you think has been the impact on them with you not being able to hear? Of course, I'm sure they must have had to learn the language and as well the sign language. How has it been for you being a mother and being in this situation?
Okay, with my kids are slowly learning sign language. They've made some progress there, but they are my kids, so I'm able to communicate with them well. They're able to tell me their needs. We're able to interact well. And they have not been affected in any way by my deafness. Their upbringing is just perfectly okay.
Are you apprehensive now when they get sick? Like, oh my God, they might have malaria and something could happen to them. Does that make you extra careful with them?
Yes, they're able to communicate when I'm feeling okay. I'm able to tell that motherly instinct kicks in. When you become a mother, you know your child, you carry this child in your tummy for 9 months. It's not easy for you, it's not hard for you to be able to communicate with that child. So from the time they were born, I was able to know there's something wrong. Even if I could not hear the cries. Like when I'm breastfeeding, I would be able to tell. So it was just that natural motherly instinct that has kicked in, and it has helped me bring up my boys.
Boys, okay. You did mention that you're a human rights activist. As somebody who's still at the university, and you were complaining that there is no special education in terms of sign language there. What are you doing yourself first at the university where you are, and in education in Zambia in general, to try to push for better teaching facilities and opportunities for somebody like you who missed your dream of being a doctor because people could not see beyond just this one disability?
Firstly, we have been advocating for employment of sign language interpreters in educational institutions. And that has been our fight for over the years. And well, it's making slow progress, although many institutions always say sign language interpreters are expensive. And this is pretty much unfair because they are able to pay for a lot of other services and they can afford sign language interpretation. So there's just need a change of mindset, something that we'll continue to advocate for. And secondly, my presence at the university is more of an encouragement now to help deaf people to be able to come to University of Zambia, because they know that they will have someone who can communicate with them and attend to them. I have also been teaching sign language at the University of Zambia, which will help teachers who are graduating from the University of Zambia be able to attend and give quality education to deaf learners in schools, because our basic challenge for deaf learners has been a lot of teachers graduating from universities obtaining their teaching degrees in special education, but they cannot communicate with the learners. So we're trying to have a teacher in profession that is able to sign with the learners. But away from that, I have been strongly advocating for the signing of the sign language bill this year. I want the government to sign the sign language bill, and this is going to help change the deaf community, their experiences in the social environment, accessing healthcare services, education services, because with this law, all institutions will be pushed to be able to learn sign language. All service providers will have sign language. So if this is coming as a law, everyone will need to abide by it. Right now, sign language has not been made an official language. So it's very difficult for institutions to follow this law and see that they need to mainstream issues concerning the deaf community. So with the law, it's going to be very helpful.
Progress, for example, on the national TV on ZNBC, that there is sign language, at least on the news, but clearly we still have more work to do, isn't it?
Yes, this is not supposed to be just be left to the government alone. ZNBC is a private institution, is a government institution, sorry. But we need private institutions also following suit. We need other media houses also employing sign language interpreters, because other media houses also catch the news. They have different programs going on there which can be beneficial to the deaf community. So we have Prime TV, which has led the way. I think they have some sign language interpretation there sometimes, and they also have a program there which where deaf people host different people who go there for discussing several issues concerning deaf community.
But the bill will make sure that even in conferences and in education...
Yes, the sign language bill is going to make sure everyone is abiding by the law and making sure that sign language is mainstreamed.
Okay. What are your hobbies? What do you like to do? Do you like to cook? Do you like sports? What do you like to do?
I love to read. I read a lot.
Still reading, right?
I spend a lot of time reading.
Are you writing a book anytime soon?
Hopefully so. Hopefully so. Hopefully I'll be able to write something someday or put something down. But I love to read. I love the outdoors. I love to travel.
Let me ask you this question. All these years now, do you feel that the doctor who prescribed that quinine is responsible for what happened to you?
I have never thought about that. I have never really given that thought. For me, I feel that he did everything possible to save my life, and there was no other solution. I was unconscious. I would have gone, I would have died, so I'm grateful to him for saving my life. And I not once have I ever blamed anyone for the quinine. I've never really given it thought, but I do know that the quinine needs to be banned, and the use of quinine should not be allowed, because it has affected a lot of children. It has affected a lot of people in the deaf community, like a lot of people who have had, who have deafness here in Africa. Quinine is one of the biggest causes. So I think, I have never thought about the doctor's usage of it, but the quinine needs to be banned or just used moderately.
Would you also say that you were lucky because you had a family that could support you, that could afford even the special care? It might not have been perfect, but at least they could afford it. Would you say that you were one of the lucky ones that at least had a family that has seen you to where you are today? because I'm sure there are others that slipped through.
Okay, let me rephrase that. It's not being lucky, it's being blessed.
Being blessed.
Yes, it's being blessed. And if you have noted, a lot of times in families where the child has a disability, those end up in divorces. And then most of the time a child with disability is not cared for properly, never receives any proper education. There are so many deaf children out there who've been abandoned by their parents. And speaking as a teacher, I have seen a lot of deaf children who are being sponsored by well-wishers. They are being sponsored by the church. They have been abandoned. A lot of parents thinking they cannot make it out there. They cannot make anything out of themselves. So it was very fortunate that my parents were supportive, and I've always had a family who have always showed that they have confidence in me. They have supported me every way.
I am so grateful that you agreed to come on our show today, because I think that you are a real example of just what any young woman should be: confident, hardworking, and of course we share something, books. I absolutely love to read, and I was very, very happy to hear that you agreed to come and share your story with us. So thank you for coming, Rachel, and I wish you only the best. Okay.
Thank you. It was an honor to be here. And I should say I've always been following you and being inspired by your work. So I was greatly honored to be here.
Well, that is our podcast for today. We had an explosive Rachel, who is very clear that having a disability doesn't mean that you can't live your life as you want to live it. And I hope that we've all learned something from her. As somebody said, that if you can think, if you can speak, if you can write, there's nothing impossible. And I think Rachel just showed us that. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
I want to talk about side effects that can occur as a result of prescribed or non-prescribed drugs. And this is important because this affects the safety of the patients and also can affect adherence. So this question of saying, why do side effects occur and what can you do about this? So medication, as the rule, is meant to address some diseases or some processes. So they either interfere with the process in order to stop something, or they can actually block some processes. So when you are targeting, when they are making drugs, they use what they call clinical trials. They actually try to understand whether these drugs are safe or not safe. And let me just qualify what I mean by safe. So it's not absolute safety. It's actually safety in such a way that when you weigh the cost and the benefits, you come up to the realization that the benefits outweigh the risks. So that's the thing that they look for. Is this drug safe? So when they start developing some drugs or some medication, it goes through all the trials to ensure it is safe to a human being. It doesn't kill the kidneys, doesn't kill the liver, and things like that. Then the other thing that they look for is efficacy or effectiveness, whether this thing, the drug, can actually stop a disease or prevent a disease. So remember now, when they are making it, they can target one process, but some of the drugs, when they are given, they can block other processes which they didn't intend. And this is unintended consequences or side effects for that matter. So whilst you are drinking drugs, one thing you should know is that they can actually result in blocking other processes. So some of the things which are very common in some of the drugs that we drink and can have some side effect. And some of them, they are as simple as Panadol, which we take. So you could have common side effects. So for example, dryness of the mouth is one of the common things that can happen. And sometimes people can, depending on the class of the medications, they can cause dryness of the mouth. Some of the medication, for example, salbutamol, the one that you can take as inhaler, it can help you to expand the chest, but it can also cause palpitations. Others can cause problems with the liver functions, and so that's why when you give, there are some medication for example, for tuberculosis, that you need to be checking for the liver functions, even HIV medications. That's why they check for kidney, liver functions, so that some of the consequences can affect those organs. And some of the common things that happen in Zambia can actually result in people taking medication that can have some side effect, and one of them is malaria. So malaria is one of the commonest diseases in Zambia. In fact, if you do medical practice, people will tell you that common things occur commonly, meaning that if you came with a fever, the first thing I'm going to do is to tell you that this could be malaria. Unfortunately, we have got several arsenals of malaria, but some of them don't respond to that. So you need to escalate, okay? There are several medications. You remember quinine, chloroquine, artemether. All those are different types of anti-malaria that can be given. But each one, like I explained, can have some side effects. Okay, so let's talk about, for example, quinine. So some of the things that can happen as a result of taking quinine is that people can actually have blurred vision, dizziness, and that's why when we are taking this, we even tell people that you should take it with food, because sometimes it increases sugar consumption and people have actually come up with hypoglycemia, and that means the sugar is low. But one of the common things that people worry about when you take quinine is that it can affect your ears, and there's something called tinnitus, some noise in the ears. And then sometimes it can affect your high-frequency hearings, and this can be reversed in most cases. I want to repeat, in most cases, this is reversible. But in some cases, people have gone on to have hearing impairment. But if you use this in the dosages we have described, for the frequency we have described, to treat the particular disease, and you don't abuse it, most of the outcomes are good. Because of these side effects with quinine, actually the Ministry of Health has been replacing some of the quinine requirements with other medications, artemether formulations, and some of them are given IV, and they have got as good response as quinine. So because of the side effects and the efficacy or effectiveness of the new drugs, quinine is being used less. But I know that some people have had some side effects because of this, and that's why it's very important that you talk to the doctor and you learn what to avoid, and also sometimes just what do you take with your drug. So sometimes they tell you, take food. Please listen to that. Take for this frequency. For things like quinine, which can have those side effects, if you take more than you should, it can have some side effect. Hopefully you enjoyed this session, and we are also happy to come next time with any other question that you have about medical side effects and what you can do to protect yourself.